Good evening, hello and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another week and with it another Fast and Furious evening of iRacing official GTE Sprint Series racing action as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. And well, what a week we've got lying in wait today because it is week 7 of the 2025 Season 2 campaign and that can only mean one location as we make our way into the second half of the season. That's right, you named it and guessed it right ladies and gentlemen. We are here in Australia for the Mount Panorama Circuit, but more affectionately referred to as what is the Bathurst circuit. A circuit that is old school and very different compared to most modern circuits, whereas most modern circuits now take place on what is dedicated road racing surfaces and indeed are far away from local towns and cities. Well, this is one of the few remaining street circuits out there in what is the Oceania region, and well, what a circuit it is. Running over the course of many a road which runs past many a local business, well, this is a circuit like no other because it runs all the way from the bottom and the foothills of Where's a Hill all the way to the top of Mount Wallu, also known as Mount Panorama, depending on your nomenclature. And well, it is a circuit like no other when it goes to the fact that all overtaking is relegated to the straights that will take drivers up to the mountain and down from it, with the run over the mountain being incredibly tight and the corners even at the bottom of the mountain just being as tricky to tackle, even under the bravest of braking pressure. As we welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side, you're tuning in right now on YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX11 at TX, alternative Paul Walsh, and welcome to you guys and girls as you tune into this top split broadcast for week number 7. And in the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul Walsh, also known as TX11 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what name and indeed what social media you follow me on. But as we welcome you all to this broadcast, of course, we've got one event on our schedule for today. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or you know, still coordinate time in UTC. And as we can see, in approximately what will be 3.5 minutes time, we'll be heading to the grid for our one and only 45-minute race at what will be the 1900 GMT or UTC top split slot here on this fine Friday, the 2nd of May, 2025. But as we roll our way into tonight then, well, let's give you a recap of the season so far and what we still got lying in wait. Because as we can see, we've made our way into the second half of the season. And the first half of the season was absolutely ram-packed with a ferocious set of circuits. We opened up at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps with week number 1. At week number 2, it was the game of playing slipstream antics at Daytona International Speedway. In week number 3, it was the Suzuka International Racing Course in Japan. In week 4, we made our way to Italy for the Autodromo National Monza. Week number 5, it was the roller coaster ride of Road Atlanta. And last time out, of course, it was the Algarve International Circuit, where on the Friday the 25th of April for week number 6, we may have only had one lobby in terms of our split, but we got to see an absolutely brilliant week of racing. There were 29 drivers on the grid, all giving it their all, and we're sure to see plenty more today as we get ready to go racing once again. I can tell you, we do have 21 drivers on our grid in this top split for today, but we're not going to talk any more about the strength of field until we come back to Circuit Side. But of course, the second half of the season dominated by American circuits, albeit we also do see the German circuit, the Nürburgring combined, or the Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke make its way for the penultimate week in week number 11. So you've got plenty to look forward to as we get the second half of the 2025 Season 2 schedule underway. But coming into today then, and talking more specifically about the circuit that's playing host, well, of course, we're at the Mount Panorama Circuit. There's only one layout to this circuit, located in the limits of the town of Bathurst in the state of New South Wales of Australia. And well, this circuit indeed could be a pin-up on many a motorsporting fan's home on the wall. Indeed, many of these callers will be household names to you as we take a look at the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, and thank you to iRacing not just for their brilliant simulator but also the fantastic track mats that come with it. 23 corners and it all begins and they run into Hell Corner at turn number 1 and it all concludes at Murray's Corner at turn number 23. But along the way our drivers will make their way uphill towards Griffiths Bend at turn number 2, at which point they'll go through the cut-in at turns 3 and 4 and start to make their way over the mountain, and some of the major corners of course being Quarry Corner at turns 5 and 6, Mathilde Park at turn number 10, Skyline and the downhill descent from 11 all the way to Forest Elbow at turn number 18, and the run down the back straight all the way down Conrod in towards the chase at turns 23 to 22, and then of course at Murray's to complete the lap. There's plenty to look forward to here, and that race in action is going to be absolutely on a knife edge, and we've been so tight around here, qualifying is going to be absolutely pivotal to success. But before we go racing, a quick reminder of the rules. This is an open setup series with fuel loads restricted to 50% for each and every race. The grid shall be set via a closed qualifying session, which is currently unfolding, and the race shall commence via a rolling start. Drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 16 or more instant points, and if they amount that to 25 instant points, they'll be disqualified from the race. And yet, we've yet to see that at all, and hopefully we don't see that over the course of the season, because we make our way back to circuit side. And, well, we do have a couple of drivers out there right now getting their final qualifying laps in. And the strength of field today, not the highest we've seen this season, but it does come close. Our strength of field being 3,557, or rounded up to 3.6k there. And, well, one of our big names right at the front of the field. And, well, you would not forget him. If you've seen him once on the circuit, we've seen him many a time this season. We're glad to see him again in the number one. And it is none other than Samuel Lorenzo, who brings the Ford GT to the circuit today. And the GT machine there absolutely roaring strong, as he does not improve compared to his previous qualifying lap, but he does manage to maintain his pole position so far, albeit we see Christophe Dubois there moving it into 4th place in what is the Corvette C8R GTE. We've still got some drivers out there still getting their laps in with 2 minutes left on the clock. Remember, they have the 1 out lap plus 2 flying laps in order to get those times in. With this being one of our longer laps on the calendar, it does mean that for our drivers here, they do have to try and maximise the time they have in qualifying. As our number 9 driver here of Timothy Parker Russell, new to this top split broadcast, and we're very happy to see him here. Indeed, we've got quite a few new drivers on the grid today, or at least new to us in terms of this top split broadcast, and Parker Russell being one of the many out there. We also do have, I believe, none other than Makoto Saito, who we do see here in the BMW M8 GTE, and this could be a very interesting car here. He's the only BMW bringing the car to the grid today, and in the number 20 car, he's one of the lowest rated drivers in terms of their iRating, with door number representing how they rate compared to their peers. However, that's not necessarily going to be an indicator of how well or poorly he's going to do. Indeed, we've seen some surprises of drivers with very low door numbers in terms of their iRating perform very well indeed, as we do see Saito making his way down towards Murray's corner. And, well, this BMW M8 has been very strong on the straights, but it's been weaker in the corners and under braking, and, well, that's going to work out for the run out of Hell corner and all the way down to Murray's via Conrod. But is it going to work out for him when he does go over the mountain? Well, it's all going to be about trying to put himself into track position. Saito comes across the line there and does not improve that time. That'll be the end of his qualifying session, and I believe the only driver yet to get a lap in is none other than Matthias Beer, as we do see Beer making his way in towards what will be the run of the Conrad into the chase, and they're in the Ford GT. And we've got quite a few Ford GTs here today. We normally do see the grid made up dominantly of what is Corvette C8Rs and Porsche 911 GTEs, the RSR of course, but we do have a few Fords here today, also a couple of Ferraris, and then just the one sole BMW of Saito. So therefore we've got a bit of car variety here. Car variety could inject the spice of life, but he just crosses the line there, does Matthias Beer, and he does not improve. Well, in fact, he improves his lap time, but doesn't improve overall, and that's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to head to the grid for our one and only race on the schedule today, as all drivers make the way now. So as they make their way onto the grid, how do they line up, I hear you ask? Well, this is how they're going to line up for our top split broadcast for week number 7 of the 2025 Season 2 iRacing official GTE Sprint Series. And as we can see, it is Samuel Lorenzo has taken pole position, albeit not by a huge margin there, and he is joined on the front row of the grid, the Spaniard, by his fellow, what is rival there, and indeed a regular rival in the Ford GT, and that's Javier Rojo. Behind them on row number 2, it's going to be Matthias Beer for Malazani Racing, ahead of France's Christophe Dubois. And, well, we've seen Dubois a couple of times this season, particularly many of you may remember at Road Atlanta, he put in that great performance, and we hope to see plenty more today from him. And he is the first non-Ford car inside the top 4, and he's in the Corvette C8R. And then on row number 3, we have the pairing of Gabriel Martinez and what is there, Roberto Farina. And behind them, going on to what is row number 4, starting in 7th place, is Jose Rodriguez GC, ahead of what is there, Jacobo Paz, who makes a return to the grid once again. And then we do have complete in the top 10, Jean-Charles René, and then it's going to be Gregory Samson, and Samson making his debut in this top split broadcast, and welcome to the Frenchman who lines up alongside his fellow countryman. Outside of the top 10, starting in 11th place, best of the rest, it's going to be GB Racing's none other than what is there, Guillaume Berend, and we welcome into the grid, and alongside him will be fellow newcomer Timothy Parker Russell, who starts 12th. In 13th place, we have our regular in the Porsche 911 RSR GT. How could we forget him from the United Kingdom? And that is Max Chambers. You can expect plenty of fighting from him. He has a tenacity to encourage battles at each and every corner. He's going to be in the company there of Frenchman Stéphane Lobouis, as we do see their number 80 driver line up in 14th place. Then in 15th, it's going to be Javi Alfonso Moreno in the company of Jordan Shamblin, who's on the grid once again, the American driver, and he's an absolute regular in the top split. If it is on a Friday, this broadcast, you'll see him there. He's promised us that. And then we will see on the row number 9, none other than Makoto Saito, and what is there, Ewan Stitchby. And then we do have on the final row of the grid, the final full row of the grid, I should say, the pairing of Marcus Pla Hernandez and then it's James Forster, and then last but not least, started 21st today, all by the lonesome on the final ride of the grid. It is going to be Emilio Redondo, who'll be starting their 21st out of 21st drivers in the number 21 car. Well, as the field gradually pulls away for the partial formation lap, it's not a full formation lap here. Indeed, it's going to be a quick run before we do make our way to the green flag, and well, Samuel Lorenzo will be the driver who will take our drivers there as he makes his way through. But looking further back, these Ferraris, of course, they can be the bit of the black sheep in the field, and Stefan Lajoboris will be making his way on around right now, as we do see the number 18 driver coming on through there in the Ferrari. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as the safety car will peel off to the side into the pit lane, we do look there to Samuel Lorenzo to take us to the green for 45 minutes of racing here at Bathurst. As he makes his way out the final corner, he takes a bit of a pause, but Samuel Lorenzo takes a deep breath, and we all do as we go green racing. And as they roll the way down towards turn 1, Lorenzo delaying the starts helped him out, as Matthias Beer, meanwhile, under pressure, and Christophe Dubois immediately out the gate. The Cuba racing machine now gives pursuit as they make the way up the hill. Everyone's safely through turn 1, and there's a long run up towards turn 2, as we can see a bit of a mistake there from Tiffany Parker and Russell further on back, losing out to Ewan Stitchby. But as they make the way up the hill in towards turn 2, well, further back there, a bit of battling between our Corvette drivers, and Gregory Samson under pressure here to try and make some progress, with Max Chambers already pulling away. Too wide behind, that's Makoto Soto. Oh, goodness me, a big shot into the barrier there at turn 2. I think contact there with what was one of the Corvettes. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can. Jordan Shablan, meanwhile, not really gaining great progress at the start. In fact, going back a position as he makes his way to turn 4, but still there's plenty more to do, and it's only the opening lap. But of course, you've got to get those tyre temperatures up as soon as possible, those brake temperatures up as well. And now it's all going to be about just avoiding the walls and keeping it in control over the course of the mountain here, because it's not really wide enough to make an overtake. That's not to say you can't overtake through here, and drivers can be very bold to do so, but to do so, you've really got to have an advantage on your rival. And well, these drivers are at the peak of their game, and you can imagine nobody's going to make a mistake, although we did see there Roberto Farina going a little bit deep before the dipper, but he brings it back together there with his teammates behind him, of what is Jose Rodriguez GC and Jacobo Paz, all working together here as they make the way down under braking. But as they come through Forest Elbow there, the hairpin that completes the run on the mountain, and now down onto the back straight, was going to be a raw hit, and this will be a demonstration of who's running a little bit less rear wing or open up the gearing by comparison with their rivals. As meanwhile, Javi Alfonso Moreno here under pressure to try and make a move on the Ferrari. In fact, that's Stitchby making his way on around the inside to outside as they make the way down the Conrad straight. That Ferrari gets ahead for now. The Corvette tries to come back, but that Ferrari's looking quite fast there as they head in towards the chase. Onto the brakes they go, and Stitchby up another position there into 13th as he moves up the order in that wonderful purple liveried Italian machine. Timothy Parker Russell now looking for an opportunity here as they head down towards Murray's Corner. Is he going to look for it? Well, he balls to the racing line. Is that a deception? No, he decides not to go for it, and that's your opening lap for the top 15. So after one lap, it's Samuel Lorenzo who leads, ahead of Javier Roger in second. Matthias Beer is in third. Christophe Dubois, non-Ford car, and indeed in a Corvette, is in fourth, ahead of Gabriel Martinez. Then we do have Roberto Farina in sixth, ahead of Jose Rodriguez GC. Jacobo Paz is in eighth, ahead of William Berend. And then we do have Jean-Charles René completing the top 10, and Max Chambers in 11th right now, best of the rest in the Porsche, not too far away from his fellow Porsche driver of Berend. However, there's going to be a bit of a gap there, and they're separated by a Corvette C8R, and that's Jean-Charles René in that Corvette as they make the way through turn 2 for the second time today. But rolling the way up the hill and in towards turns 3 and 4. We're looking further back. Parker Russell trying to make a bit more progress here on Alfonso Moreno, and won the battle of the two Corvettes. Can't seem to find a way through as he almost hits the wall there, coming in towards what is at turn 4 under braking, trying to go as late as possible to get that late apex all clocked in. But as they make the way back over the mountain, well, we look to Max Chambers here. And Chambers right now under a bit of pressure growing, as we can see there, what is the car of Gregory Samson, getting closer and closer, and well, as they make the way out of turn 10 through McPhillary Park. Chambers right now just trying to keep his head cool, and this is the thing, it's all about right now 9, that to overtake you over the mountain, you've got to make an absolutely huge mistake, as Chambers there locks up the front right brake. We did see what was a little bit, the front left brake I should say, from the driver's perspective, and a bit of a lock up there into the dipper. It's not going to cost him too much, a small lock up there from Samson as well. They're pushing each other hard right now as they make the way out of Forest Elbow. But of course, those micro lockups, they won't feel much by themselves, but when you add them all together, it can take a lot of life out of the tyres and also the brakes. It causes the brakes to overheat and the tyres to get very hot as well, and that can cost you a lot of pace. So therefore, they won't keep repeating that mistake, as we do see it there. Stitchby making some progress here in that Ferrari. That Ferrari is looking very quick in the toe as they come down into the chase. Goes up the inside then, absolutely nails it under braking, and Lewis Stitchby is up another position now into 12th as they come on through what is turn 22. But as they make the way down towards the final final corner. Samson's going to look one side, then the other, and then decides, you know what, it's not worth it right now. I might as well bide my time and wait to go once again. As meanwhile, a little bit further back, Stefan Leopois making his way on through what is turn number 23, and we'll try to chase down Jordan Shamblin. And these two both having relatively quiet starts, albeit the Ferrari driver losing 3 places at the start. Meanwhile, Shamblin not gaining, not losing anything, and therefore I think he'll be quite happy with how things have progressed so far. But meanwhile, as we look back to the front of the field, well, Samuel Lorenzo had a brilliant start, absolutely nailed the start, as he normally does, in terms of he goes to some quite unconventional starting points, whereby normally drivers would expect him to go at a certain point. He completely bends the mould. There's a big graze there to the wall on the outside of turn number 2 into 3, as he made his way into the cut-in. I thought Lorenzo there was going to damage the front right suspension, getting very close, trying to see just how wide he can make the corner, but Lorenzo won't be making any mistakes here, because the pressure right now is absolutely on its limit as he makes his way through turns 7, 8, 9 and in towards 10, and this top 3 right now is starting to pull away. It's 3 Ford GTs and then a Corvette of Dubois, and Dubois right now has got Martinez, the 4 for the Ford GTs very close behind, but these drivers all pushing each other onwards, but Dubois started just to fall a little bit away, and in terms of relative lap times, he's lapping the 59.2s, meanwhile the leaders are lapping in the 58.4s, so that's why the gap has opened up after the course of what is the opening couple of laps, as now the Ford GTs are starting to settle in. But of course, what we do know is that whilst the Ford GT is a monster in its own right, this Corvette is very strong over race distance and normally does have the best tyre life compared to its peers. If you do want to manage your tyres, you can get a lot more pace out the tyres over the distance, and that's why we wouldn't rule out Dubois or Terti Farino's down in 6th place out of this race and potentially a chance for a podium if not victory. But meanwhile, as we do see here, Stitchby, well, he's made one attack on the previous lap, he's going to make another one this lap as he looks to go into the inside here versus Chambers, and Chambers there gives him the space. Well, now it's going to be a role reversal as Chambers defends the inside here in towards the chase, and the two make the way through. An error there for what is Stitchby, sends the Ferrari around, he gets it turned back onto the tarmac. I think a little bit eager there to come down the gears and also try to get the turn in, and in the end the rear differential just locking up there and the car letting go, and well, very easy mistake to make, very eager to make progress, and all that progress now has been completely thwarted as meanwhile James Forster has made his way on past Leo Boris as they make the way on towards what will be another lap. Some changes going on as they head on towards lap number 4, but whilst all that's been happening, we've got some replays to give you from earlier on, albeit we'll hold the phone for a brief moment as Dubois hit under pressure from Martinez. Martinez taking a peek up the inside in towards Mountain Corner at turn number 2, but decides not to go for it once again. If that's Corey Ben there, let's get the names right. But with that, we're now going to cut back to replay from lap number 1 and explain what happened to Makoto Saito on this open lap. So it was side by side there between Saito and Stitchby in towards the braking zone. They went for turn number 2, and under braking, it looks like there might have been a tap there. It's not quite clear from the camera angle, but that sent Saito to the barrier, and were able to pull out the barrier in the end, but be very frustrated with that one, no doubt about it. But as we return to your live race in action, that was the big instant of the open lap there. Only one driver involved, but Saito at the back of the field, well, currently only 2 seconds off of Hernandez, so therefore not too far off of the pack, but in a very heavily wounded BMW M8, and that's not going to be helping him whatsoever today as we come back to all the battling action here as the drivers make the way through. Further back, Stitchby, of course, the driver's made a lot of progress, and right now trying to make some more progress. He looks up the inside there into the skyline corner versus Shamblin, and Shamblin right now be absolutely petrified there at the thought of going too wide on through, but these two absolutely giving it everything to be right on board here with what is the number 12 of Stitchby, and as they make the way down in towards the Forest Elbow corner, the hairpin, where it's completely off camber, it's a complete downhill braking zone. Indeed, the circuit practically falls away from you, and therefore you've got to be very sensitive on the brakes. Well, no change between them, but from them, Jacobo Paz going up the inside there. Roberto Farina as they make the way out of Conrad and into the chase. Oh, it's a change of position there. Farina giving up the position to his teammate, and I think they're on communications right now saying to each other, right, I haven't got the pace, you need to go hunting after what is Rodriguez, our teammate, and then Martinez accordingly, and instead I'll act as the rear gunner as they come on through where's the left-hander of Murray's Bend, and Guillem Berens there, I think, was hoping for an opportunity to sneak his way through the Porsche 911 RSR, but he wasn't able to, and instead has to sit behind. But good tactical call there between the teammates to swap the places around, and perhaps this will help them out, and perhaps they can even do some fuel saving, and perhaps that's also the idea there, is the fact that one's been fuel saving off the other, and now the favour's going to be reversed. But Shamblin and Batman Stitchby here in towards turn number 1, the Ferrari on the inside, a little bit of paint traded there, and Shamblin in the end made to go a bit wide, and Lewin Stitchby right now absolutely trying to charge as much as possible. You can understand Shamblin's not too happy about the contact there that forced him out wide, so therefore he's going to have to tuck back into second behind now and wait to go on again. But I get the feeling this Ferrari driver, he's got something to catch right now, and that is going to be Parker Russell, who's a little bit further up the running order. We're going on through turn number 2, so those drivers have already made the way well clear. Well, this is the battle right now for second, with Lorenzo having pulled off into the distance by the best part of almost 4 seconds. This is absolutely now biting between 2-4 GTs. Matthias Beer in one of them. Meanwhile, the KTT competition driver Javier Rojo in the other. And as they come on through, but Philby in towards Skyline. Over the crest they go, no delta between them. You'll see this gap constantly back and forth here. Christophe Dubois is actually closed up to the pair. It does seem as though Beer is the one who is right now not quite perhaps on the pace compared to Rojo, and that is leading to what is a little bit of this back and forth. And in fact, I think there's been a change of position between these two, because Beer, the last time we saw him, was not in second, he was in third. And I think we can get you a replay of how that move was made for second place very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. We're not going to cut to it right now, because here comes Rojo, as he's going to have a huge overspeed here as they roar the way down Conrad. 2-4 GT side by side, and it's going to be Rojo on the left of your picture, Beer on the right, but Rojo cuts across onto the racing line, and right now Beer will tuck back in behind there and try and pick up the slipstream. Onto the brakes they go. It's a swap of position here. They don't want to take too much time out of each other, but you can imagine the temptation to fight is only growing. Well, speaking of fighting there, that is Guillermo Berend going up the inside there of Roberto Farina. Almost misses it at the braking point, but just about stops it in time. You can see the Farina looking one way, then looking the other, given the fact the Porsche was so slow coming out of turns 21 and 22, but it does look as though Berend, they're able to get things back together, and the leading Porsche driver now moves up to 8th place, albeit you can see Jean-Charles René has backed into this battle, and therefore now we try to also make some progress against Roberto Farina, but it's easier said than done. The two drivers very familiar with each other, and they've had some great battles earlier in the season. As they head up the rise in towards turn at number 2, long way to go, and with that it gives us plenty of opportunity to pull some fault, and this was how Matthias Beer on lap number 4 made his way past Javier Rojo, and well, this was into what was the cut at turns 3 and 4, going on through the corner. What exactly happened? Oh my goodness, oh, big slide there from Javier Rojo, and in the end contact as Matthias Beer made his way past on the inside. Well, both drivers able to carry on, but that would explain why the gap has opened up, and also potentially with some damage to both cars. That could explain why they're perhaps a little bit off the pace compared to the race leader, in the fact that they have fallen away on pace over the last few laps, and Samuel Lorenzo is the only driver now lapping in the 58s, whereas everybody else is lapping in the 59s, if not the 2-minute 0 flats. But as our drives continue onwards, we return to your live pictures. We do look to Gregory Samson here, as we do see the number 16 Corvette driver for what is the privateer outfit chasing after Max Chambers. And well, over the crest they go, and on down up here where there's been a bit of drama going through the dipper quite recently. We're going to try and come to that drama very shortly. I think we've had Christophe Dubois move into second place. There's a lot of smoke there still lingering on the exit of the dipper. I wonder if there's been a bit of contact between some of our leading 4 GT drivers. We'll try and find out when we can, but Samson close, not close enough here to look for a move. Surely down Conrad, albeit it is a long way to go down this backstretch. The best part of a kilometre, as they make the way onwards here, will not close up at all. And that Porsche, if anything, actually looking to open up the gap rather than let it close. And that could be quite telling here in the fact that Samson may have opted to run a bit more rear wing to give stability over the mountain. But it comes at the cost, of course, which is straight line speed down Conrad and up the mountain straight. But as they head in towards the chase chicane, well, from there we do see Samuel Lorenzo going onto another lap here. 12 minutes complete, still plenty of mileage to go, but a gap and an advantage of 7 seconds to this man, Christophe Dubois. And Dubois right now in second place with the army of 4 GTs behind. Well, the Frenchman won't be afraid of the fault of battling, but he might be a little bit concerned about the fact he's got a very hungry pack of American EcoBoost machines all chasing him here. And right now, well, the Corvette that's normally been the most popular car right now proves to be not popular inside this top 5, and was the head in towards turn number 2. It's going to be Gabriel Martinez looking for a potential move on Matthias Beer, but Javier Rojo just watching from behind, as Miguel Jacobo Paz also looking for an opportunity to try and make some progress with his teammate here, Jose Rodriguez GC. They've got the growing pressure of what is the Porsche line of an Arasata Berend behind, albeit they'll stay as they were for the time being. And as they do so, head in towards the cut-in. Well, meanwhile, we get a replay of what exactly happened between our 4 GT drivers on the previous lap. And here is said replay. Now, this was coming down into the dipper, so what exactly happened is the question. Well, in the end, was this Matthias Beer making his way through? Oh, my goodness, and Javier Rojo getting it wrong. Beer having to snap the brakes, and that explains what happened. And then was Gabriel Martinez making his way out the inside there on a very wounded Javier Rojo. So Rojo losing it coming out of the dipper. And, well, Rojo did lose it earlier on, but if you will remember that replay, we did see it from what was the cutting a couple of laps into the race, and that explains as to why we have seen the shuffling of positions there and why it is now Christophe Dubois' Corvette that's in second place, but Javier Rojo definitely with a Ford GT that seems to be very unstable on that rear end. Obviously, you do want to make these cars unstable, again, the fact it gives you better rotation, but too much instability and not enough throttle to keep that rear end planted down, and that's where the mistakes can very quickly come, even for the very best of our drivers. They almost look to go 3 wide there, coming down Conrad, and that is going to be Gabriel Martinez looking for a move, as Javier Rojo follows Martinez on through, and Matthias Beer says, okay, I'll let you both go, because we can't afford to lose the second place, man, because all this fighting, of course, will cost them time. You can see Dubois is gradually pulling away to the distance, almost a second gap now for Dubois as he makes his way underneath your picture, and as they head in towards turn number 23, well, this fighting is most certainly only going to get tighter and tighter. If all 3 drivers start to lose, where's the top 2? And I think some frustration might build in here, and it's only going to be interesting also in terms of strategy, who's using more fuel than the other as they come out to turn number 1 and make the way on upwards. We do say hello to a number of you in the YouTube chat there, including what is Chujako El Waro, I think that's how I do say that username, also Roberto FDZ, also Petka, and also Luis Miguel Cancelero. Well, I hope you're all doing well and enjoying the race. And as here comes another move. This is Javier Rojo back up the inside of Gabriel Martinez here. It's turn number 2. And the KTD competition is driving now regains the position. They lost him earlier on. And now he'll go, oh my good lord, and runs out a little bit wide, hits the barrier. And I think that's going to be Rojo's race. That car looks very, very badly damaged. He brings it to a halt. And Javier Rojo there with a small error, a lapse of concentration, carried too much speed out of turn number 2, tramlined over the exit curve, and then just hit the tyre barrier as he made his way out towards turn number 3, and Rojo's race is in ruins. And that is a big surprise because Javier Rojo really has been one of the stars of this season, and suddenly it's all come crashing down. But that means plenty of opportunities now for other drivers around to try and gain a place or two as they make the one through, but that was definitely a surprise and not a welcome one. Well, as we do see here, the big chase between Paz, Vered and Farida. Roberto Farida very close, but not close enough to think about a move as we ride on board the dashboard here of what is the number 13 car. Unlucky for some, but I think right now he'll feel as though he's quite lucky, albeit the pace did fall off in the opening couple laps, decided to give up some places, having started in what was, I do believe, 6th place, but losing at 1 place at the start and then opting to gift a place to Jacobo Paz in order to enable him to get a bit closer. Bered also coming through as they make the way on down the Conrad Straight here, or should I say up it and then down it as they go over the rise and underneath the Fuso board. The Mitsubishi board then heading in towards what will be at turns 21 through to 23. Well, right now onto the brakes, Farida goes, not really close enough to get involved as we see some dirt being kicked up there, and that's Jacobo Paz just taking a little bit of liberties with regards to using the grass on the right hand side there to open up the corner. You can get away with it up to a point, but go too far into that grass, and what you end up doing is completely losing grip on the right hand side of the car as they make the way out of the corner and up towards what will be another lap. We can see there Rodriguez at GC does not seem to be quite happy with the pace of the car right now, and in fact is gradually backing up this group more and more, perhaps trying to do a little bit of fuel saving here in order to give himself a shorter pit stop time. Remember, when they come into the pits, they will need to take on fuel. They haven't got the fuel tanks to get to the end of the 45-minute race, but they don't change tyres, given the fact that will take a much longer period of time because the fuel goes in first, then the tyres go on, or vice versa, depending on how my memory goes. And well, with that, it's going to be too costly to put a new set of tyres on. Lower drivers would just want to come into the pits for a quick splash and dash of fuel and get back out there and go racing. Speaking of going racing, Roberto Farida a lot closer this time on the back, always at bare end as they make the way in towards the cutting, but can't find a way in against the Porsche 911 RSR driver. It does seem as though now Farida's a bit more happy with the way the car's playing in his hands, and therefore he's going on the offensive. As from our top 10, we'll drive a bit further down, but this is our number 21 driver, Emilio Redondo, and well, we do see here Redondo on the attack versus Lebro Harris as they come in towards what will be at the cutting. Onto the brakes they go. They're fighting over 17th place. To be fair, if they're fighting at the front of the field or the further back, they join the batting even more so. As Redondo, they're having a little bit of power oversteer coming out of turn number 4 and just almost losing the rear end there. And in fact, Makoto Saito now is going to look for an opportunity to go on the attack as we ride on board here. Saito gets very close. That grille of that BMW M8 absolutely looms large. But the problem is now for Saito is the fact that on the mountain, what can he do at this point? And the answer is he's just got to stay close and put the mental pressure onto Redondo, who absolutely grazes the left-hand side barrier there with the car. And well, you can see the sparks flying off there. That's how close they get to the wall, sometimes a bit too close for comfort. And I get the feeling right now the sponsors won't be too happy about what will be their logos being brushed off the car. But for Redondo, he'll be more concerned about the fact that right now he's got to hold on as he has a huge lock up there coming up through Forest Elbow. And here comes Saito then, and that BMW with its 4.4 litre V8 twin turbo power plant is going to get closer and closer. But can it get close enough to look for a move here? And the answer is no, it can't. Saito just not closing at all. But I think Makoto Saito Saito instead opted just to stay close and run in the toe of his rivals and try and gain some time in the pit stops, given the fact we are starting to head towards pit stop territory now, given we are in the 19th minute. That's normally when we do see some drivers go for the very early undercuts, but as they roll the way through, nobody pins the pit lane this time. Everyone's staying out there for a bit longer, and it does depend from circuit to circuit, and given the fact we've got one of the longer laps here, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see those pit stops start a little bit later on in the day. But meanwhile, looking for our battlers here outside of what is the top 15, so a bit more inside the top 15. Well, this is Javier Alfonso Moreno being chased by Jordan Shamblin, and Shamblin right now close, not close enough, however, versus the yellow and red Corvette as they make the way in towards what we turn number 2. It's a long run here, and Jordan Shamblin close. 3 attempts is the delta, takes speed to the inside, then decides against it, trying to keep his Iberian rival guessing, but right now the American driver not close enough to really enact on the thread, and just staying there for close company as they make the way up towards turns 3 and 4. But as they do, we take a look back at what exactly happened to Javier Rojo only 2 laps ago at turn number 2, and here's the replay, ladies and gentlemen. And well, in fact, we do catch it very briefly. You can see the car just rolling off the exit curb, and well, I think we might be able to get a little bit of an earlier replay as to what happened there for Rojo, and I think we can do it from here. And here we go then. We ride on board with Javier Rojo as he made his way up the mountain straight. This was the move initially on Gabriel Martinez, but now listen in to what happens with the car as he comes through turn 2. And you can hear there as he just made his way out the corner a bit early on the throttle. Car goes onto the curb, it bounces over the curb, and by that point when he wants to pull the car right, Rojo can't do so, and in the end the car is on a one-way collision course with the barrier, and that's what happened to Javier Rojo, who was looking very strong in that recovery, but in the end the recovery being brought to a premature halt. Indeed, he'll be absolutely frustrated with that one. But as we come back to your live race in 20 minutes complete and still more to come, no doubt about it. We're looking back here to Saito chasing after Redondo and Leporis as they make the way up towards what will be the chase, or down towards it once again. Not close enough right now, and currently running 20th. The last of our positions is Marcos Pla Hernandez, and Hernandez in a little bit of a quiet race at this time, but in a very colourful livery, I must say. He may not be winning major prizes in terms of his finishing position, but definitely that livery is going to be winning the hearts of many a spectator out there as number 15 driver makes their way on towards the end of this lap. Everyone's still staying out there. In fact, it's going to be Hernandez who will be the first driver into the pits, so decides to go all in. You might as well, when you're at the back of the field, you've got nothing to lose by gambling, and decides to go for the undercut. And I think some drivers further up the field will now be wondering, okay, is it our turn to go for it as well? We'll carry from the drive right at the back of the field to those inside the battle for what is at the 5th place position, and you're looking at the quartet here of what is Rodriguez GC ahead of Jacobo Paz, and then Guillem Berend and Roberto Farina all giving pursuit to one another here, and Rodriguez GC right now in your 5th place in that Ford GT that's made its way past our camera as quickly as it arrives at it, and well, it does look as though Guillem Berend made some progress earlier on, but right now just had to wait his turn as Roberto Farina there, almost putting some, well, in fact putting some paint on the wall, and the number 13 driver, 9, he can get close, but he does want to keep getting that close, because if it's a flat impact with the wall, it's not too bad. It doesn't really damage the suspension or the bodywork of the car, but when it's a slightly angled impact, that's when you can do some significant damage. There's always the suspension links for one of the tyres, particularly what would be the front right or the rear right tyre in that instance. And when you knock your wheels out of alignment, suddenly the car becomes a very different beast to drive, and it's a beast that you won't want to necessarily tame as they make the way on towards what will be the chase once again. And well, Farina and Berend are a bit far apart, but Rodriguez GC now has really got Jacobo Paz, his teammate, close behind. Paz here really sniffing at the exhaust fumes of his Ford GT teammate, and as they come in towards turn number 21, they decide not to change places at the moment. But I can imagine if this continues, there might be a swap before the pit stop occurs, or one of them may decide to pit earlier in order to switch up the strategies. But heading in towards the final corner then, no difference at this time, and Berend just watching from behind from them. Meanwhile, we do have what is the run here in the battle between Redondo and Saito, with Leprohuris starting to pull away now in that Ferrari 488 GTE as they head up towards what will be at the chase. And as they're coming in, no change between them either. So everyone right now tucking it into a little bit of a pack, as we have had a bit, oh my goodness, we look down to the start finish track, look out the content booth window, and that is the Corvette of Gregory Samson that's had a big spin, and in fact losing out some places there with what is Parker Russell coming through, previously Ewan Stitchbury. We'll have to try and find out what happened there shortly, as it's all kicking off. Meanwhile, we thought this might happen, and it has happened. That is Jacobo Paz, who's elbowed out there at turn number 2, and well, Rodriguez GC, Berend and Farina all coming through, so it is getting quite clinical now as Makoto Saito's into the pit lane as well, and decides to go for the undercut. They're coming in from what was 19th place, right in the back of Emilio Redondo, and decides now it's all worth the gamble. But in terms of what's happened here, well, we've got a couple of instances we need to take a look back at, and well, that starts off, of course, with what happened to Gregory Samson at the end of the previous lap, and here is the replay. Now, Samson was by themselves. You can see Stitch be a little bit further in the background, but as he made his way in towards the final quarter, comes in very hot, runs out a little bit wide, and the rear of the car hasn't settled down as he tries to get the power down, bounces onto that exit curb, and that's enough to kick the rear right tyre into a bit of a spin, and with it the entire car avoids the wall, and well, Samson back up to speed, but losing 2 places for a quick error. And then we did have straight after that what was the change of positions, and this was Jacobo Paz at the time trying to battle with what was Jose Rodriguez at GC, trying to make his way past Rodriguez GC. These two were very close at the end of the previous lap, as you may recall, and as they made the way up the mountain straight, Rodriguez GC giving him all the space, but here come at bare end, and as they made the way, and I think there a tactical decision was made. Unfortunately, some contact was made with it, where Paz was to back off essentially and give the position back, but it wasn't to work out, and well, with all that as well, oh my good lord, what on earth has happened here? We come from the scene of all 4 of those cars where they're moving quite peacefully, and it's all drama, son. Here's bare end, is into the gravel, gets it back out the gravel just in time. Not happy about that at all. Here comes Max Chambers, meanwhile, around the outside. His fellow Porsche driver, a bit Brand's going to battle it immediately here. And, well, he may have lost all those places, but the number 3 driver isn't going to let it dampen his spirits whatsoever as we head into the second half of the race. And it's a very hot-tempered start to the second half of the race. And I can imagine that right now there's going to be a lot of question marks as to what exactly happened there from drivers further back. And, well, we're going to get some answers to that very shortly as Jean-Charles René, meanwhile, has moved all the way up to 7th place. That is Saito in the BMW, who's a lap down effectively due to the pit stop. But René giving up the position there to Rodriguez GC, not really wanting to fight with the 4 GT driver, and I think are wary of the fact that there might be a bit of a pace difference, and therefore Jean-Charles René's race is not with that 4 GT, and he'd rather just follow it around the circuit. And whilst it's not as entertaining as we would like it, sometimes as other drives, they're a bit more tactical and strategic in the way they race, and we can't fault them for it. But as the racing continues, well, right now, as they roar the way through, only always 2 drivers have taken their pit stop so far. We haven't seen an influx of drivers into the pit lane, as I think that was Saito into the barrier there. My good lord, and Saito's car is in ruin, and well, that is a huge shunt to the barrier, and I think that was coming out of turn number 6 in towards 7 at wheel spin. I think seeing the car kicked around to the wall, and well, whilst all that's happening, Rodriguez GC is under pressure coming out and filling through with Skyline from René, and as they make the way on down through the dipper, you're right on board from the rear of Jose Rodriguez GC's number 10 car, and in towards the Forest Elbow they go, and as they do, no mistakes here from Rodriguez GC, started to get things back down to normal. Albeit it's been anything but a normal last couple of laps for this driver. Indeed, many a driver around him, and as he makes his way down the Conrad straight, it's looking as though that gap is getting bigger and bigger as they roar the way further and further off into the distance. But as they come down towards that braking zone, where you can see there the gap and how pronounced it is between the 2 of them over the course of one stretch of tarmac, and such is the delta of that exit Forest Elbow for the 4 GT driver. Looking back to Javi Alfonso Moreno, meanwhile, where he's on the chase of James Forster. Forster there in what is the silver-pink machine. Very colourful livery, it must be said. And right now, Moreno just trying to stay close there and put some pressure on, but it's easier said than done. He is going to get within 2 tenths here as they head towards the braking zone, but is it going to be enough? And in the end, Moreno has to back off, lifts off the throttle and says it's not worth me trying to lunge it on the brakes. I might as well save some fuel and wait for the next lap or wait for the pit stop to come. So as things stay relatively static between the drives at this time, well, it's a perfect time for us to take a look back at what exactly happened to Guillem at bare end with that off track. And here's the replay, ladies and gents, but from the previous lap. So on lap number 12, there was contact there between that bare end and what was the Ford GT. And then subsequently, as bare end tried to put the car in the middle of the road, well, his rivals behind were not too pleased. And in the end, making contact there. And I believe that was the car of, I think it was Jacobo Paz giving them the tap. And well, both drivers a little bit frustrated there, no doubt about it, as a result of the incident. Can we get a better replay of what exactly happened in the build-up to that is the big question. And I think the answer is yes, we may be able to. And here is the replay coming down. So this was bare end batting at the time under braking, and we'll try to look up the inside there, taps the rear of the number 10, and well, after that it all unfolded. Roberto Farina was the one who gave bare end the tap, and Jacobo Paz just simply avoided all the chaos and carnage around, and they came down here in towards what would be Murray's corner, and well, Farina taking the place back off of Paz, and that is how things played out between them all. So a bit of drama there, and well, whilst all that drama was playing out, we jump aboard with, on these live pictures now, Javier Alfonso Moreno as he chases after James Forster. Get very close. They're coming in towards McPhillamy Park, and in having to back off naturally. You don't want to be any closer than 2 tenths because otherwise you've got an absolutely huge wash of dirty air over the front of the car, and that leads to natural understeer and a loss of downforce. But as they make the way in towards what will be Forest Elbow now, when Moreno close, can he get any closer here on quarter exit? This is the quarter where you've got to get it right, and you can see a small lock up there for Forster, just a tiny front left lock up as he made his way through the corner. Not happy the way the car was behaving, so having to get the brake back on. But Alfonso Moreno not really close to 4.5 tenths in the the corner exit. He will close up gradually here in the slipstream, but it's not going to get him at more than 2.5 tenths by the end of the run down the Conrod. So therefore, Moreno gets close, but not close enough to really be threatening it when he needs to be, and therefore it's just time to sit there right now and play the game of patience once again. And, well, respectfully, he is being very patient, and that is a virtue in a driver, no doubt about it, as Forster decides to come into the pit lane. So he decides now to become our third driver to make their pit stop, and, well, it is still a pit stop this race for most of our drivers, albeit we are expecting those pit stops at some point, but James Forster has decided enough's enough and he wants into the pits. But as he does so, coming on in, well, we look back to Emilio Redondo and Stefan Lebruis as they make their way onto another lap, going on to what for them is lap number 15. No change between these two at the moment, albeit the gap has opened up a little bit to the favour of Boris as they make their way up towards turn number 2. And well, from them, we do look to Timothy Parker Russell in what is the number 9 car in 12th place, being chased after by Gregory Samson. Of course, gaining the place of Samson with Samson's spin on the exit of the final corner, what was 4 laps ago. But right now, back here in the present, Parker Russell just simply holding his place, and well, in doing so in the battle of the 2 Corvettes, these two quite similar on pace at the moment, albeit Samson was that previous lap 2.5 tenths faster, but then again 2.5 tenths is not worth that much if you can only do it over the mountain. If you can't get it on the straight, then that time advantage is worth naught, just for the simple reason you won't get close enough on the run down the straights, as we see the sparks fly from the under tray. Parker Russell's Corvette bouncing off of the exit curve then at Fenelby Park and seeing those cars bounce around. Well, you do want to use these curves, but they are very high curves, and that is something to keep in mind. And the fact that if you ride too high on them, you can cause the car to ground out. But from them, we come to what is Stitchby versus Max Chambers, and well, the Ferrari driver who's been very fast down the Conrod straight, he's going to go for it again, but that's a Porsche that's also very quick in the hands of Chambers. They make the way side by side in towards the chase chicane, then here they go, and it's going to be Chambers on the right, your picture defending. Meanwhile, Stitchby trying to go around the outside to inside here, too wide they enter, and in at the end, the Porsche just simply pulls ahead, being able to nail the brake in, as Stitchby has to back off there, as it looks so everyone's going to peel into the pits here, all into the pit lane then, everyone going, was the best part of 16 laps before they decide to go for the fuel pit stop, and Samuel Lorenzo was the first to do so in this group, and he will be the first to leave the pit lane, and a very, very quick run through the pits at that, only 11.5 seconds stationary time to put the fuel in the car, and something tells me he may have been able to back off and do a little bit of fuel saving, given the advantage he was able to pull over the field, and that advantage was the effect of approximately 10 seconds when he was making his way into the pit lane. In fact, it may have been a little bit more than that, and the gap now back up to what is 12.2 seconds on pit lane exit, as we do see what is Gregory Samson carry on there, and Samson's going to go another lap. That's incredible from Samson to save the fuel to do what will be 17 laps, well, in fact it'll be 16 laps we should say, on a single tank, whereas everybody else has been able to do 15 or less. Well, Samson right now tucking in, he's in 5th place, but remember he will filter back into the field, as will Javier Afonso Moreno, who is going at 1 lap longer as well, but immediately yielding there to Paz, letting his teammate just come on through there, not wanting to block him at all, particularly before the mountain. But meanwhile, they came into the pits literally nose to tail. They're going to be side by side now, leaving the pits and up towards turn number 2, and that's going to be Ian Stitchby on the inside of Chambers, 2 wide they're going in, and Chambers giving the elbow out there, manages to stop the car before it goes to the barrier, but Max Chambers in the end just being given a brief tap. He's not too happy at that, and you can understand why, with the car being pushed wide. I think he was worried about hitting the barrier there, but Stitchby right now coming through like a bull in a china shop, as the proverb says, and will absolutely roaring through in the number 12 Ferrari, as that 488 right now has got places to be, and he's very eager to get to them as quickly as he possibly can. But as they head over the mountain, well, for these two, Chambers right now watch on, potentially try and come back a little bit later. Meanwhile, in terms of other battles, with the battle between Jordan Shamblin and James Forster, where Shamblin has in fact opened up that gap to the best part of 4 seconds with what was a much faster pit stop compared to Forster. They struggled, I think, to get the fuel gun onto the car, and it took them an extra 2 seconds because that gap has opened up now to 4 seconds, whereas it was before the pit stop only 1 second. And here's James Forster. For comparison, they're not in the same camera shot anymore, and that's a surprise. But speaking of surprises as well, here's a change of position, as we are going to see Alfonso Moreno being passed there very gradually by what is the Cuba Racing car, number 8 Jean-Charles René, who makes way through in the black and red Corvette. And well, I think Moreno here might be trying to do a bit of fuel saving to get to the end of this additional lap. It is an impressive run here to get his 16th lap, whereas everyone else has gone for 15 laps. The same for Samson, who has come into the pit lane from 5th place. You expect that's going to put him just outside the top 10, but we'll wait to see exactly where it's going to put him, as Alfonso Moreno also makes his way in. But credit to these two, they definitely have made their fuel tanks go the distance, and that could be worth a lot come the end of the race. But from then, we do look to Gabriel Martinez, who's got Matthias Beer behind him, and well, these two were nose to tail in the early stage of the race. Indeed, for the entire first stint they were, albeit with the altercations of some other drivers around, there was a bit of drama. But right now, the only drama that seems to be coming to these two is the prospect of batting for third place towards the end, because Christophe Dubois is just doing enough in the foreground of your camera shot then, the Corvette C8R, to hold on to second and not be under as much pressure, at least for now, as we do jump on board here with Matthias Beer as he makes his way over the mountain. Now, with two of the same cars here, it really does come down to, at this point, the abilities of the drivers and also the setups they're running on the car. And sometimes, when these onboard shots, we can start to see little behavioural differences between the two drivers as they make the way through at given corners. Finley Park being one of those corners as well, we can start to see differences, with Beer opting not to run on the curbs there, interestingly, compared to what is Martinez. And I do wonder where perhaps Beer has opted to set the car up not to perhaps have as much travel in the suspension. That's why he's avoiding over those high curves. There's a big graze of the wall there for Martinez. He comes out of the dipper, absolutely attacking, but as they break the way down to Forest Hill, but you can see Beer very composed under braking there, and in fact closes up the gap. The gap only 3.5 seconds, they make the way out to the elbow, and onto the backstretch they go. Martinez is very aware of this. You can see the fact he's trying to follow the toe, the distant toe of Dubois, but also trying to break a little bit of the slipstream effect to Matthias Beer's Ford GT. But as we ride aboard and continue to with Beer, he's getting closer. He could look for a move here coming up through. Where's the chase? In towards the braking zone they go, and as they do, he gets close, but not close enough to be threatening to go up the inside, but close enough to really make Martinez wonder what's going to come when it comes. And as they come in towards McMurray's Court at turn number 23, we've still got 10 minutes plus the final lap on the clock, so it does mean as Lorenzo goes on to lap number 18, we are expecting what will be the best part of another 5 laps at least. And well, right now there's nothing between Martinez and Beer. The only thing we're noticing is the fact that Beer feels a lot more comfortable with the team under braking, but Martinez can run out into these curves much more aggressively. And two slightly different setups in these Ford GTs, two drives with very different approaches to this Bathurst circuit, and it's a wonder to see exactly who is going to be finishing on the final step of the podium if they can't get close enough to Dubois. But as they power their way onwards then and give chase, with Dubois there only it was 1 second clear, so there's that distant slipstream effect, and Dubois will be trying to keep that gap open for as long as he can. Well, whilst all this is playing out, a bit of change of places further on back in the fact that Emilio Redondo has jumped ahead of Stefan Lebruis, and that has been a change of position. The number 21 car has moved up into 16th place here on strategy, a good call there, and has put 4 seconds between themselves and the Ferrari driver of Lebruis as they make the way on towards what will be the next braking zone. In fact, I think there's been a bit of an altercation that's happened quite recently between these two, and that might explain the delta that has occurred. And in fact, we've got a quick replay to explain what may have happened, and here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This was Emilio Redondo and coming over the mountain. Well, in fact, this is completely separate. The Ferrari driver is nowhere to be seen, and well, I think Redondo here coming from Finley Park and just run a bit wide. Oh, goodness me, and hitting the inside wall there of what's turn number 10, just pushing the car outwards, gets away with it that time. But with Cats having 9 lives, you can imagine that's going to use up a couple of them for Redondo, because in other circumstances, we could have seen that Corvette very deep into the gravel trap and potentially even into the wall, but just able to power through it this time. But definitely that is going to be one of those moments that makes Emilio Redondo think, okay, I can't afford to push it as hard as I have been. But meanwhile, speaking of pushing it here, well, Jacobo Paz is going to have Rodriguez GC, his teammate, look to swap places here as they make the way down. They give each other all the space and then some. And I think, in fact, Jacobo Paz, they're practically giving the entire road to his teammate as they make the way on. As they swap the places around, and Rodriguez GC, this was much like the first stint, interestingly enough, before the pit stops, where we did see the two swap early on and then swap back towards the end, albeit under some challenging circumstances, given what was the altercation they did have with Guillaume Berend, who has had to repair the car, and since repairing it is back out on the circuit, all the way down in 18th place, unfortunately. So we won't be seeing the German driver in the Porsche 911 RSR contesting for the top 5, indeed the podium now, but he's still out there. And well, here is the footage to show you that he's out there as he is trying to go on the attack here versus Le Bruhuis. And indeed, we jump on board here with the Porsche 911 RSR as it gives pursuit, and it's not been the race that Berend has wanted after that contact between himself and his rivals coming out of the chase chicane, but still good to see him still out of the circuit and still giving it his all. We have lost 2 drivers so far over the course of this race, including what is Makoto Saito and Javier Rojo, with Rojo having that nasty knock to the barrier at turn number 2, and Saito getting it wrong, coming on through at what was turn 6 into 7. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get any replay footage of that moment, as much as we would have loved to have seen what exactly happened. But right now, Guillaume Berend is on the attack here, and what big lock up on the front right brake there for Le Bruhuis. In fact, I think that was just dust coming off the circuit rather than actual brake dust or brake smoke, and as they head up towards what will be turn at number 1 into Hell Corner, well, right now Berend close, but he's going to need to get a better exit here in order to go all in. That Ferrari, however, is looking very fast on the straight, it must be said, and we saw that with Ewan Stitchbury's car earlier on, a bit further up the road, that's in 9th place, and Berend here close within 2 tenths now as they get towards the halfway point of what is the mounted straight, and Berend's going to pull to the inside here. It's going to be a classic pass up the inside into what will be Quarry Bend. All the way they go, and well, that is going to be Berend up into 17th place as they make the way now, and well, Liberis is going to tuck in behind, but I think it's only going to go one way, and it will be the way of the number 3 Porsche. We're going through the left hand of the cutting, and onwards they go. As they do, we look back to the front of the field, and just in time we do so as well as they make the way on through, and it is going to be, what is it, Christophe Dubois there, who's ahead of Gabriel Martinez, and Martinez right now is getting closer and closer, and we were wondering whether Dubois was going to be able to keep that gap open to a second over the course of the remainder of the race distance, and the answer seems to be no, he's not, in the fact that Martinez is now close enough to think about attacking, as is Matthias Beer. So these three separated by 7 tenths from car to car. And it means right now, while Samuel Lorenzo is on a very peaceful run at the very front of the field, 15 seconds clear, Christophe Dubois' peaceful run to the finish, it's going to be quite undone here potentially, as now he's got to try and keep the pace up to keep the Ford GT party from dominating the podium. With what is the best part of 9 minutes, well, in fact not 9 minutes, 6 minutes left on the clock plus the final lap to go on in, and well, given how we've started this lap, we believe this lap plus 3 more are still to come, so we will be doing 23 laps coming to the end of the racing today, and Christophe Dubois will need to hold on for what are the 4 remaining as he makes his way on through, then heads in towards what will be Quarry Bend, and we have been referring to turn number 2 as Quarry Bend all the way through this broadcast. In fact, I've just had it whispered in my ear that it is Griffiths Bend. Then we do apologise for the confusion, and well, as the driver makes his way over the rise here, right now Dubois won't be thinking about corner names, he'll be thinking about nailing corner apexes as he heads in towards turn number 10. But looking back from one Corvette to another, and one Corvette that's under pressure to one that's under pressure to attack, and that's Gregory Samson, who did have, what was that different strategy, opting to go, was 17 laps, much like Javier Alfonso Moreno, and well, these two right now in front of you are Samson and James Forster. 2 Corvettes, 2 different strategies, Forster having started all the way down in 20th place, meanwhile Samson starting in what was 10th place. 2 very different races between these 2 drivers, with that spin costing Samson a lot of place and a lot of time, but Forster right now just picked his way through the field little by little. Very consistent try for James Forster, and that's why he's enjoying a run into 13th place and looking to potentially chase after Jordan Shamblin, who is only 2 seconds up the road. You see him briefly there in the camera shot, and Shamblin, the Porsche 911 RSR, having a solid run, I think just trying to run away as quickly as he possibly can, as we do see here Forster rolling through, and Shamblin there just grazing the barrier coming in towards Skyline, and well, making their way down from Skyline now, descending through the mountain, and you can imagine those tyres will be worn, those brakes will be hot, and driver concentration will be its ultimate test here, as now they've got to get a real feel for the car in the closing stages. And the thing is as well at Bathurst, it's one of those circuits whereby you never want to look at the lap count and you never want to look at the race clock, because as soon as you do, and as soon as you know you're getting towards the end of the race, you naturally start to either relax too much, and that's when mistakes are made, or you start to think more and more about the clock and the distractions coming in, and with that potential mistakes can occur, and either way you don't want to make a mistake. And well, make no mistake, we're seeing here that fight for second place. It seems to be 2 drivers are going to lock horns for it, because Matthias Beer is 1.2 seconds behind this battle. You can see him there in the rear of the camera shot, but Christophe Dubois and Gabriel Martinez are the ones who are going to contest this as we ride on board here with the number 5 Ford GT as it makes its way out of the cutting through Quarry Bend they go, and Martinez staying within half a second. I mean, it does seem as though, for all the speed that Martinez does have on what is those long straights, that Corvette of Dubois is feeling very, very settled here and sets up. Oh, goodness me, there's a big graze there for Martinez coming on through turn number 9. And, well, that is not going to blunt his enthusiasm. Well, at least it hasn't seemed to, but I can definitely tell you one thing. Martinez makes a habit out of that. The car's not going to like it for much longer as they come down into the dipper, through the left, in towards the right. And right now, Martinez absolutely using all the available circuit width there, and then some, plus the barriers in order to stay this close, as well goes a little bit deep there on the Forest elbow, but manages to pick it up in the second phase of corner exit. Martinez does get the better run on through. 4 attempts they make the way onto the Conrad straight. Can he get close enough here as he inches now to within 3 attempts? He's getting closer and closer. Martinez is building speed. They're halfway through. He's in 2 attempts. Martinez is going to have an opportunity here as he looks to peel to the inside of 21, and well, it's going to be the outside here in towards the chase, and in the end Dubois covers him off, puts the Corvette in the middle of the road, makes it wider than it looks, and Martinez just has to wait. I think Martinez not looking to attack too hard, using this as a means of research, trying to understand what is Dubois going to do if he gets the better exit. Where can he position himself earlier on the Conrod straight in order to get under the skin of Dubois? Those are all the things you've got to think about here as they head onto lap number 22, and this will be your penultimate lap of racing in Australia as they come in towards turn 1 once again. But right now, maybe Samuel Lorenzo is absolutely running away, as we do see Lorenzo here on our camera screens. But meanwhile, 16 seconds back, it is a chase between a Corvette and a Ford GT for the runner-up spot here. And right now, Dubois in the Corvette may be holding on, but can he hold on for a little bit longer? Because Martinez is absolutely breathing down his neck and putting on absolutely unquestionable pressure for the number 4 drive to hold off the number 5 all the way towards the checker flag. Further back, we have had a change of position here, and this is on what is for 16th place, and this is going to be Guillem at Berend up the inside there of Emilio Redondo into what was the chase and making that move stick before the braking zone, and Berend in the end recovering another place, but 9 is still more recovery to do and not the race he's wanted whatsoever. James Forster meanwhile chasing after Jordan Shamblin. In fact, has caught up to Shamblin quite quickly, but Gregory Samson's also there, so Shamblin might be saved by the Samson here as they make the way out of turn 1 and in towards 2. He's going to try and get the 2 to fight, because it looks like the Porsche 911 RSR driver is not in a happy place as they power the way up towards what will be the turn number 2, once again heading towards Griffiths Bend. And as they come in towards that right hander, well, they all stay as they were. We'll keep an eye on this battle, as we will the other battles out there, and in particular that battle for second. It's going to be at the centre of our minds as they make the way on through, and you're looking back at the battle for second now. Dubois holding on, but there is going to be the fast approaching Ford GT of Martinez, and Martinez already at the halfway point is going to be looking for the move here as they power the way on through. Underneath the Mitsubishi board they go, and Martinez there will be on the inside to the outside of the chicane. Meanwhile, Dubois trying to hold the inside, but you can see Martinez gets enough speed. He can park the car on the inside there. Brilliant positioning for Gabriel Martinez, and Christophe Dubois just doesn't have a response. Martinez takes second place, and now he's going to try and run away with it in towards Murray's corner. Can he get it done here in towards the final corner? Yes, he can. And will there be one more lap to go as the lights come on the car? He goes deep. He goes way too deep, and Dubois comes back at him. Side by side they go as the white flag waves. And as they do, it's too wide in towards turn number 1. But Dubois on the inside. But being on the outside isn't a bad thing. Martinez, however, is going to try and cut back here and get the drag race run up the hill as they make the way on towards turn number 2. So Martinez right now back in the slipstream. And can he get close enough here to look for the move in towards Griffiths Bend? We certainly 1.5 tenths away. You'd think he's going to do it, but Dubois is going to pin that Corvette all the way to the inside of the road here, and Martinez has got nowhere to go other than the outside. Well, there's plenty of road camera to go for it, but Dubois in the end says no, you're not going to do it, and as they make the way through turn number 2, right now Dubois will feel very safe in this position for the time being as the clock strikes 45 minutes. We are on the final lap 23 of racing today, and it's going to be over the mountain now between these two, and it's going to be about who can keep it together and not lose their will and their concentration all the way through. As they make the way over the mountain, we've had plenty of changes further back, as we can see John Shamlin trying to hold on to 12th place here as they go on to turn their final lap of racing, with James Forster and Gregory Samson behind. They're 4 tenths apiece between each of these 3 cars, and as they come on through turn number 1, right now Shamlin avoiding those exit curves. Has he got a problem with the tyres? We're not quite sure, but what we do know is he's got a problem with 2 fast approaching Corvettes behind him, and he doesn't want to let them through. But it looks like if anything right now, Samson might be trying to put a bit more pressure on Forster. You see Forster there pulling to the inside and back to the racing line. And I think Forster doesn't know which way to play this in terms of does he look to defend or does he look to attack? Well, from them, let's come back to the battle for second as they make the way on down Conrod. It's going to be Dubois trying to weave from one side to the other, but Martinez is close, and Martinez will be pulling out for the toe. But we have to stop looking at this battle, ladies and gentlemen, because as he makes his way into the final quarter, Samuel Lorenzo has absolutely dominated today and will take victory there after 23 laps. A brilliant drive in the Ford GT. But what about the battle for second? We come back to it just as Martinez has been able to get ahead, and I think he might have got it done there just coming into the chase chicane. Christophe Dubois is going to try and come back at him down into the final quarter, thinks about it but decides not to, and Gabriel Martinez will claim second place in the Ford GT, but there will be a Corvette on the podium, and it will be Christophe Dubois who takes third ahead of Matthias Beer, who rounds off the top 4 in a brilliant race between the trio. It will then be Roberto Farina who will be finishing in 5th place, and a very solitary 5th place when all is said and done, but still he won't be upset about that. And then it will be Jose Rodriguez GC who will be taking home 6th ahead of teammate Jacobo Paz, and we're a little bit further back by 2.5 seconds. It will be Jean-Charles Brenet who finishes in the valiant 8th place against the fast-charging Ferrari 488 of Ewan Stitchbury. And well, there were some elbows out there from the number 12 drive, but what a drive from him in the purple Ferrari. In 10th, it'll be Max Chambers. He finishes inside the top 10 once again. A great drive there from the leading Porsche driver. And then in 11th place, well, it's a way to go yet, as there's plenty of battling going on behind, but Timothy Parker Russell on his debut in the top split broadcast will take home 11th place, and good drive there from the number number 9 driver, given how it all started today. And then we will have John Shamblin, who is going to hold off. Will be James Forster to line there. Forster tries to use the rallycross line to overtake. It's not going to work. And Shamblin takes 12 ahead of Forster, with Gregory Samson in 14th place. William Behrend will wrap up the top 15 there in a frustrating end to his day and having to go for full recovery mode. Javier Afonso Moreno will take 16th, and then it'll be Emilio Redondo who finishes in 17th ahead of Stefan Lepujuis, who we see the second of the Ferrari drivers take 18th. And last but not least of our runners, Marcus Pla Hernandez. We gambled it all on a very early pit stop. It didn't quite work out, but to be fair, he had nothing to lose, and credit to him, he still made it to the checkered flag. Well, what a race, ladies and gentlemen, and we are going to take a look back at what happened between Gabriel Martinez and what was Christophe Debar on the final lap, because their battle side by side, we did have to cut it away. And of course, this is how it all started between the two of them as they went on to that final lap. They were battling into turn number 1. It was a side-by-side battle through there, but Debar got back ahead after Martinez made that error coming out of Murray's corner. But then later on in the lap, of course, they made the way down the Conrad straight out Forest Elbow, and we had to leave this to see our race winner across the line. But Martinez looks very quick here, and how exactly did it all end between them? Well, Martinez cut to the outside of turn number 20. This was put on the inside in towards the chase chicane, and Debar simply holding that inside line too wide. They went on down, and what was going to be a battle under braking, and the Ford GT driver getting to apex first. Debar trying to cut back, but Martinez dragging himself through the corner to make sure Debar could not get the cat back run, and that is how Gabriel Martinez finished second place in the end, ahead of Christophe Debar. Debar took a sneaky peek there into Murray's corner at the end, but wasn't close enough and wasn't going to risk it to cause an incident and cost them both the positions. And with Matthias Beer so close behind, I think Debar making the smart decision to settle for third. But what a battle between them, and Matthias Beer will be a bit upset he couldn't get involved in that right at the end, but still credit to him for being an ever-present threat. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your racing here in Australia, and let's take you through those race results subject to any Stewart inquiries. So after a fantastic 45 minutes and 23 laps of racing, we saw Samuel Lorenzo make it another victory this season. The priority in the number 1 car, the Ford, absolutely leading the way from Spain ahead of Gabriel Martinez, who finished 19.5 seconds behind. But to him, he won't be too upset about missing out on the win, because he'll feel as though he's a race winner in beating Christophe Debar to that second place finish. The Frenchman, meanwhile, having to settle for third, but making sure it wasn't an all-Ford podium, with the Corvette C8R returning to the podium once again. And it was Matthias Beer's Ford GT that just missed out the podium for Melazani Racing, but still a very happy run there for the number 6 driver from Germany. Roberto Farina finished 5th there, and a quiet end to his race after all the drama in the opening stint, but was the one to avoid most of the drama. And then it was Jose Rodriguez at GC who finished in 6th place ahead of Jacobo Paz, his teammate, with Jean-Charles René 8th place there, and the priority enjoying a comfortable race, but I think wishing there was a bit more battling. We did see then Ian Stitchby in 19th I should say, let me get that correct, in 9th place there for Oro Motorsports, and will the Ferrari driver from Wales absolutely coming through blazing red hot there in the number 12, and we did love to see it ahead of Max Chambers, who completed the top 10 there for the United Kingdom in the Porsche 911 RSR, and a good drive there after a difficult qualifying session. Chambers gradually picking up the places through consistency. We did see in 11th, best of the rest, it was Timothy Parker Russell there, the Corvette driver in a solid race of his own in the number 9, ahead of John Shamblin, who qualified poorly but did make up the places and picked up 4 places over the distance and fended off the charges of James Forster, who we say hello to in the YouTube chat there, who was very happy with 13th place, and glad to hear that, James, and glad to have you briefly pop on in. I hope you're feeling well today and all set for the weekend. And Forster there holding off Gregory Samson to the finish there, who took 14th after that spin at Murray's corner in the opening stint, cost him dear, and Samson could have been in the top 10 today, but it wasn't to be. We saw in 15th, Guillaume Behrend, the German driver from GB Racing, will be absolutely furious with that incident that cost him all those places, but still, credit where it's due. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, and he promised to finish the race, and that's exactly what he's done. Javier Afonso Moreno in 16th place there, in a bit of a difficult race today for number 17 driver, and it was Emilio Redondo in 17th ahead of Stefan Leherbois, and it was Marcus Pla Hernandez who wrapped up your finishers, 19th out of our 19 finishers. Meanwhile, unfortunately, commiserations to Makoto Saito from Japan, the BMW M8 driver there, with a huge shunt to the wall out of turn 6 into 7, cost him dear in the early stages of the race and had to retire with 12 laps to go. And Javier Rojo as well, retiring after that contact into the barrier at the exit of turn number 2. And a big hit to the barrier cost him dear in the Ford GT in what was looking to be a battle for the podium. So 21 starters, 19 finishers, and all of them on the lead lap. And well, what a week 7 top split. Definitely one of the finest races we've seen this season, ladies and gentlemen. Mount Panorama absolutely delivering, whether it be on the real stage or on the simulator stage, have you seen today. But unfortunately, we do now have to say farewell from the land down under. And well, the big question is, what's lying in wait for next week? Of course, next week, we carry on the theme of the absolute legendary circuits of the second half of the season, because in week number 8, we make our way back to the United States of America, and it will be for the Sebring International Raceway in Florida, where it will be the old runway tarmac, the old concrete slabs, with also some newfound tarmac that will be seeing our drivers do battle there over what will be an absolute plethora of laps. Due to scheduling, we won't be bringing the broadcast on the regular Friday slot. However, it will instead be brought to you from what will be the Wednesday, the 7th of May, 1900 Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time at UTC slot. So just keep that in mind. The broadcast will be on Wednesday, the 7th of May next week, as we continue the story of the iRacing official GTE Sprint Series and get to see who is going to be the master, who will take off at the Sebring circuit. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the GTE Sprint Series. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, have a fantastic weekend ahead. And remember, most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, to stay on track. Good night.